My son looked me in the eye and said, "If you don't buy me a Lamborghini, you don't love your only grandchild." This was 2 weeks after I paid off his student loans. So I rented a Lamborghini, and I parked it somewhere he didn't expect. I didn't think my son would ever say the sentence out loud. Not because he wasn't capable of entitlement. He was. I'd watched it bloom slowly, like mold you pretend isn't there because calling it out means admitting you've been breathing it for years. But I didn't expect him to weaponize my grandson. "If you don't buy me a Lamborghini," Tyler said, leaning back on my living room couch like he paid the mortgage, "then you don't love your only grandchild." He said it calmly, like it was math, like he'd rehearsed it on the drive over. I stared at him, waiting for the grin, waiting for the laugh, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. "Say that again," I asked, "because sometimes you hope your ears misunderstood." He didn't blink. "You heard me. I'm 51. I've done layoffs. I've buried my father. I've sat through divorce court. I've handled a lot of ugly moments without letting them change my face." But that sentence made my stomach drop. Not because of the car, because of the tactic. You don't demand love. You don't attach it to a purchase. And you definitely don't put a toddler on the table like a bargaining chip. "Tyler," I said carefully, "what are you talking about?" He sighed like I was slow. "Dad, come on, you just paid off my loans." There it was, like it was relevant, like it was step one in an upgrade path. 3 weeks earlier, I'd written the check that closed out his student loans. It was the single biggest payment I've made in my life outside of a house. The kind of money that makes you stare at the bank app afterward and feel a little dizzy. I didn't do it to buy gratitude. I did it because I didn't want my kid buried before he started. I thought it would give him room to breathe. Instead, it gave him room to demand. "You said you wanted me to build a future," he continued. "So let me build it." "With a Lamborghini," I said, flat. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "It's not just a car, it's an image. People respect it." He said image the way other people say oxygen. "And Noah," he added, nodding toward the framed photo on my shelf, "deserves a dad who's respected." Noah, my grandson, 1.5 years old, curly hair, big eyes, laugh that sounds like pure mischief and sunlight. He still reaches for my hands when I walk into a room like I'm something safe. Tyler watched me look at the photo and pressed harder. "You want access to him," he said. "You want to be part of his life." My chest tightened. "I already am." Tyler's smile was small and ugly. "Right, because I allow it." That's when I realized something I didn't want to admit. He wasn't asking. He was negotiating power. I looked at my son and tried to reconcile the man sitting on my couch with the boy who used to beg me to stay in the room until he fell asleep. "How much time have you spent thinking about this?" I asked. He shrugged. "Long enough to know you'll say yes if you care." I sat back in my chair. It would have been easier if he'd screamed, if he'd thrown something, if he'd been obviously unhinged. But Tyler was composed. That's what made it worse. He genuinely believed this was reasonable. "Let's back up," I said. "Why do you think you need a Lamborghini?" He laughed softly. "Because I'm not going to live like you did." There it was. The contempt disguised as ambition. "I have a house," I said. "I have savings. I have stability." "Stability is just another word for mediocre," he replied. I stared at him. "Did you just call my life mediocre?" He lifted his hands like he was smoothing a situation that I was overreacting to. "I'm saying I'm meant for bigger things." He said it the way people say they were meant for greatness. Not like a goal, like a birthright. I'd heard this tone before, not from him, not like this. From podcasts, from hustle culture clips, from men who sell other men the fantasy that money is masculinity. Tyler kept going. "I'm trying to build my brand, and people don't take you seriously if you show up looking broke." "You're not broke," I said. "You have no loans." "Exactly," he said quickly. "So now I can leverage that." Leverage. The word sat wrong in his mouth. "Tyler," I said slowly, "a Lamborghini is, what, 300 grand, 200, more?" He waved a hand. "I'm not saying buy it outright. You could lease." He said lease like it was reasonable, like I was being difficult. "And if I don't?" I asked. His eyes flicked toward the photo again. "You don't love your only grandchild," he said. And this time he added a little sting. "And I'll have to make decisions based on that." He said decisions, but what he meant was punishment. I felt something cold settle in me. Tyler didn't always talk like this, but the truth is, the seeds were there. They were planted a long time ago, and I watered them every time I bailed him out without making him sit in discomfort. I didn't raise him alone. His mother and I split when he was 12. It wasn't pretty, but it wasn't a war either. We tried. I tried. I worked. I saved. I kept him in sports. I made sure he never missed a class trip because of money. I took him to job interviews. I helped him fill out FAFSA forms. I showed up. When he got into college, I was proud in the way only a parent can be proud, that strange mix of joy and fear. But Tyler wasn't built for struggle. He could handle pressure if there was applause at the end. He could handle work if it came with status. He wanted the big life without the boring steps. And every time he hit friction, he came home, and I smoothed it. Because I thought that's what fathers do. Then came Megan. Megan was Tyler's girlfriend in college. She was quiet in a way that wasn't timid, more like she'd already learned how to assess a room before speaking. The first time I met her, she offered to help clear the table after dinner without being asked. Not because she was trying to impress me, because it was natural to her. After she left, I said, "She seems like a good kid." Tyler rolled his eyes. "She worries too much," he said. "She's always talking about budgets and diapers in real life." At the time, I thought he was just young. Now I hear it differently. Megan got pregnant senior year. Tyler treated it like a PR problem. He didn't say that out loud, of course. He said things like, "We're not ready," and "This isn't the plan," and "I can't have my life derailed." But he didn't talk about the baby like a person. He talked about the baby like an obstacle. Noah was born anyway, because Megan chose him anyway. And when I held my grandson for the first time, tiny and warm and furious at the world, something in me softened so fast I almost hated myself for it. Because love like that makes you vulnerable. And Tyler learned to use it. The breakup happened when Noah was about 6 months old. Tyler told me Megan was dramatic and unstable. He said she wouldn't stop nagging. He said she made him feel trapped. Then he said something that made my jaw tighten. "She should be grateful I'm still around." I didn't like how he said it. I didn't like the way he spoke about the mother of his child like she was a service he was tolerating. But I didn't confront him then. I told myself it wasn't my place. And that's how enabling happens. It isn't applause, it's silence. After the breakup, Megan didn't badmouth Tyler to me. Not once. She didn't send me long texts about what he did. She didn't ask me to take sides. She just kept showing up with Noah. Tired-eyed, polite, and grateful for any help I offered. When I asked if she needed anything, she always said, "We're okay." And something about that made me respect her more than I respected my own son in those moments. Tyler, meanwhile, started posting. Legacy mindset. High value. Never settle. Your network is your net worth. He'd caption selfies in rented suits like he was already a CEO. He'd show up to see Noah with a new watch and a story about a big opportunity, and then ask me to spot him just until next week. At first I said no. Then I said yes when he turned it into a guilt trip, because he'd look at Noah and say, "You want your grandson to have what he needs, right?" And I'd pay because I wanted Noah to have what he needed. Then came the student loans. Tyler called me one night like he was doing me a favor by letting me hear his stress. "Dad, these payments are killing me," he said. "How am I supposed to build anything when I'm chained to this?" He didn't say, "How am I supposed to support my child?" He said build. His brand. His future. His image. Still, I hesitated. Then I imagined Noah at 18 with the same cycle repeating, Tyler still scrambling, still blaming, still demanding. So I made the decision. I paid the loans off in full. Tyler thanked me with a quick hug, a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and a promise that he'd make me proud. 2 weeks later, he demanded a Lamborghini, and now he was sitting in my living room threatening to restrict access to my grandson if I didn't finance his fantasy. Something in me tightened, not with anger, but with disgust. It wasn't even the greed that got me. It was the audacity to dress greed up as love. "You're using Noah as leverage," I said. Tyler's expression hardened. "I'm using reality," he replied, "and I'm making it simple for you." He stood up, smoothed his shirt, and looked around my house like he was judging it. "You've got money," he said. "You're just scared to spend it on something that matters." I stared at him. "This matters to you," I said, "not to Noah." Tyler shook his head like I was hopeless. "Whatever," he said. "Think about it. I'm not begging. I'm just telling you what it means." He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "Oh," he added, almost casually, "and don't go running to Megan like you always do. She'll twist it." The way he said "always do" made it clear he'd been watching, tracking, me being kind to the person raising his child. I didn't respond. Tyler left. The door clicked shut, and I sat there in the quiet, staring at the space he'd occupied, feeling something that I didn't want to name. Because naming it would mean admitting a truth I'd been dodging. My son wasn't just immature, he was becoming someone I didn't recognize. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. "Think it over. I'm serious. If you love your grandson, you'll show it. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I pulled up my bank statements and my payment history, not to justify myself to him, but to understand the pattern. How many times had I paid because I was afraid of being cut off from Noah? How many times had Tyler linked money to Access? How many times had I called it help when it was actually extortion with a smile? Then I pulled up the calendar. Easter weekend was coming up. Megan had mentioned she was working extra shifts. Daycare had raised rates. She sounded exhausted on the phone last time. Tyler had posted a story 2 nights ago from a club, flashing a bottle like a trophy. And the thought hit me, sharp and clear. If Tyler wanted to use Noah as a weapon, I was going to take the weapon away, not by fighting louder, by moving smarter. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew one thing. Tyler had just made a demand that couldn't be met halfway. Because once you pay someone to prove you love a child, you never stop paying. And I wasn't going to spend the next 18 years renting my grandson. I didn't answer Tyler's text that night, not because I didn't have words, because I had too many. If I responded in anger, he'd pivot. If I responded calmly, he'd escalate. If I tried logic, he'd turn it into disrespect. So I did something he wouldn't expect. I drove to Megan's apartment. It wasn't a dramatic drive. No music swelling. No clenched jaw monologue. Just me, on a Tuesday evening, sitting in traffic and thinking about how strange it is that sometimes the person raising your grandson isn't your son. Megan answered the door with Noah on her hip. She looked tired. Not, I stayed up late watching Netflix, tired. Bone tired. The kind that lives behind your eyes. Hi, she said, surprised. Is everything okay? I hope so, I replied. Noah reached for me immediately. That did something to my chest I can't fully describe. Children don't calculate, they don't leverage, they just reach. I stepped inside. The apartment was small but clean, toys tucked into corners, laundry folded in a neat pile on the couch. How's work? I asked. She let out a quiet laugh. Busy. Translation, exhausting. Tyler helping much? I asked carefully. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't rant. She just said, he's trying, which is the kindest possible lie. We sat at her small kitchen table while Noah banged a spoon against a plastic cup. I need to ask you something, I said. Her posture shifted slightly, defensive but not hostile. Okay. Is Tyler consistent with child support? Her eyes flicked down. He pays when he can. That wasn't the question. When he can, I repeated. She hesitated, then shook her head gently. No, not really. I nodded. And daycare? I cover most of it, she said. My mom helps when she can. And he knows that? She gave a tight smile. He says he's building something bigger. There it was again. Building. I exhaled slowly. Did he tell you about the Lamborghini? I asked. She blinked. The what? He wants me to buy him one. Said if I don't love Noah. For the first time since I'd arrived, her composure cracked. You're kidding. I wish. She looked down at her hands. He told me you paid off his loans. I did. Her jaw tightened. And that wasn't enough. No. She stared at the table for a long moment. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For what? For how he treats you, and for everything. That sentence told me more than any rant could have. She wasn't bitter. She was embarrassed on his behalf. And suddenly the whole situation snapped into focus. Tyler wasn't just entitled. He was insecure. He needed the car, not because he loved speed or engineering or even status. He needed it because without it, he felt small. And he was trying to inflate himself using my money and my grandson as heir. I stood up. Megan, I said, if I ever help you, it won't be because of him. She looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, if I support Noah, it will go directly to you, directly to him, not through Tyler. Her eyes filled slightly. You don't have to. I know. I left shortly after, but the plan had already begun forming. Not revenge, correction. The next day I called a luxury rental service in the city. The woman on the phone sounded bored until I said the word Lamborghini. Then her tone sharpened. Yes, sir, we have an Aventador available next weekend. The price made me wince, but it was nowhere near the cost of buying one, and nowhere near the cost of letting this dynamic continue for years. I'll take it for 24 hours, I said. She started listing insurance requirements. I handled them, signed the paperwork, transferred the deposit. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Control. Not over Tyler, over myself. 2 days later, I texted him. Come by Saturday, I have something to show you. He replied instantly. What? You'll see. 3 dots appeared. disappeared, reappeared. Is it what I think it is? He wrote. I didn't answer. Saturday morning, I picked up the Lamborghini. Red, obnoxious, low enough to scrape your dignity on the pavement. Even I felt ridiculous sitting in it. People stared at stoplights. Teenagers pulled out phones. It was absurd, which made it perfect. I didn't drive it home. I drove it to Megan's apartment. She opened the door when she heard the engine. Her eyes widened. What are you doing? She whispered. Trust me, I said. Noah was in the front yard with her mom, wobbling between steps. I parked directly in the driveway, centered, unmissable. Then I texted Tyler. Come to Megan's, now. He replied, Why? Surprise. He was there in 15 minutes. He came fast, too fast. I could see it in his face when he pulled up behind the Lambo. Triumph, validation, victory. He got out of his car grinning. You actually did it, he said, almost breathless. He walked toward the Lamborghini slowly, like it might vanish. Dad, he laughed, shaking his head. I knew you'd come around. Megan stood frozen near the porch. Her mother looked confused. Tyler ran a hand along the hood. This is insane, he said. You finally get it. I stepped out of the driver's seat. He didn't notice the keys were still in my hand. You said, I began calmly, that if I didn't buy you a Lamborghini, I didn't love my grandson. He nodded eagerly. Exactly. So I decided to invest in the one person who actually raises him. His smile faltered. What? I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents, a trust fund account opened in Noah's name, 2 years of prepaid daycare, an education savings plan already funded, all structured legally, directly, untouchable by Tyler. I handed the folder to Megan. For Noah, I said. Her hands shook as she took it. Tyler stared at me. What is this? It's me loving my grandson, I replied. His face went pale. And the car? He demanded. It's a rental, I said calmly. I tossed the keys lightly and caught them again. For the day. The silence that followed wasn't cinematic. It was humiliating. For him. You brought a rental to her house? He said, voice rising. To make a point? No, I said. I brought a rental to show you that image is temporary, support isn't. His jaw tightened. You're embarrassing me. You embarrassed yourself when you tied love to a car. He took a step toward me. You picked her over me. I didn't flinch. I picked my grandson over your ego. His breathing got heavier. You're trying to control me. No, I said evenly. I'm done being controlled. Megan's mother shifted uncomfortably but didn't intervene. Tyler looked around, noticing the neighbors peeking through blinds. The Lambo wasn't just a car now. It was a spotlight. You think this makes you smart? He spat. I think it makes me clear. He stared at the folder in Megan's hands. You could have just bought it, he muttered. I looked at him carefully. And what would that have fixed? He didn't answer, because there wasn't one. The rental company texted me. Reminder, return by 5 p.m. I glanced at my watch. We're done here, I said. And for the first time in his life, Tyler didn't get the keys. Tyler stood there for a second like the world had glitched. The engine was still ticking as it cooled. Megan was holding the folder against her chest like it might disappear. Her mother had gone from confused to quietly furious, the kind of fury that doesn't shout but never forgets. You set me up, Tyler said finally. No, I replied. You set yourself up. He ran both hands through his hair. You made me look like an idiot. You did that when you tried to sell your son for a car. That landed. Hard. Megan flinched at the word sell. Not because it was inaccurate, but because it was too accurate. Tyler pointed at the Lamborghini like it was evidence. You could have just wired me the money. You had to do this whole show? Yes, I said. He blinked. You're serious? Yes. His voice rose. So this was about humiliating me? No, I said calmly. This was about removing your leverage. He scoffed. I don't need leverage. You used your child as it. Silence. Tyler's jaw tightened. You're acting like I'm some kind of monster. I'm acting like you tried to attach love to a price tag. He paced once across the driveway, kicking at a small pebble like he was 12 again. You don't understand how things work now, he snapped. Image matters. Character matters more. That's easy for you to say, he shot back. You built your life in a different era. No, I said quietly. I built it without extorting my father. That one made him stop. The neighbors were definitely watching now. I could see the curtain twitch across the street. Tyler lowered his voice, but the anger didn't leave. So what now? He asked. You're cutting me off? I'm cutting off funding for your lifestyle. That's the same thing. No, I said. It isn't. He looked at Megan like she'd betrayed him somehow just by standing there. You knew about this? He demanded. She shook her head. I didn't. He looked back at me. You went behind my back. I went around your manipulation. He laughed, sharp and humorless. You think this makes you some kind of hero? I don't need to be a hero, I said. I just need to stop being an ATM. The words echoed longer than I expected. ATM. Tyler's expression shifted. For a split second, I saw something under the anger. Fear. You're overreacting, he muttered. I was just pushing you. With my grandson. He didn't answer. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. You don't get to threaten access to my grandson because I won't finance your ego. That stops today. He swallowed. And if I decide you don't see him? He asked, but there was less confidence now. I won't fight you, I said calmly. I'll document everything. That caught him off guard. You think I haven't noticed the missed payments? The inconsistent support? The late daycare transfers? His face flushed. You don't know what you're talking about. I do, I said, and if you want to turn this into a custody conversation, we can. The bravado faltered, because unlike Instagram, family court isn't impressed by rented suits. I stepped back. I'm not your enemy, I said, but I will not fund your delusion. He looked at the Lamborghini again. It would have changed everything, he said quietly. No, I replied. It would have delayed reality. That was the turning point. The fight drained out of him, replaced by something uglier than rage. Resentment. You've always liked her more, he said. This isn't about liking, I said. It's about responsibility. He looked at Megan again, then at the folder in her hands. She doesn't deserve this. She's raising your son. So am I. Part-time, Megan's mother said sharply from the porch. That one cut. Tyler glared at her. Stay out of it. She's been in it since you stopped showing up consistently, she shot back. Tyler looked at me like he expected me to shut her down. I didn't. That was new. The rental company called. Sir, just confirming pickup location for later? Yes, I said. Same address. Tyler stared at me in disbelief. You're really sending it back? Yes. You couldn't just let me drive it once? No. His face twisted. You're unbelievable. No, I said evenly. I'm finished. That word hit harder than any insult. Finished. He stepped back, shaking his head. You think this makes you strong? No, I said. It makes me clear. The rental truck pulled up an hour later. The driver barely looked at us as he loaded the car. The Lamborghini disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. Red to nothing, noise to silence. Tyler watched it go like something inside him was being towed away. He looked smaller without it there. And for the first time since he'd walked up grinning, he didn't look like a king in waiting. He looked like a 22-year-old who had mistaken flash for foundation. He turned to me one last time. You'll regret this, he said quietly. No, I replied. You might. And that was the moment he realized the power shift was real. He didn't slam a door. He didn't scream. He just got in his car and drove away. And he didn't look back. The driveway felt bigger after he left. Quieter. The neighbors retreated from their windows. Megan stood there holding the folder like it might evaporate if she blinked too hard. Noah toddled toward me, arms up, completely unaware that his future had just shifted. I picked him up. He grabbed my collar and laughed like nothing in the world had ever been wrong. That laugh is the only thing that mattered. Megan finally spoke. You didn't have to do that, she said softly. Yes, I replied. I did. She looked down at the documents again. I don't want this to come between you and Tyler. It already did, I said. He made sure of that. Her mother nodded slowly. He needed someone to say no, she said. Maybe, or maybe he needed to hear it without a bank transfer attached. The next week was quiet. Tyler didn't call, didn't text, didn't post cryptic quotes. That was unusual. Then 3 days later, my phone buzzed. It was him. You think you won? The message read. I didn't answer immediately. I waited. 5 minutes later, another text. You embarrassed me in front of her. I typed back one sentence. You embarrassed yourself when you tried to monetize your son. No response. An hour passed. Then, you're cutting me off? Yes. That was it. No explanation. No lecture. Just yes. He called me that night. I answered. He sounded different. Less loud. Less sure. So what now? He asked. Now, I said calmly. You figure out your life without using Noah as leverage. And if I don't let you see him? You will, I said. You're that confident? Yes. Why? Because you need me more than I need you. Silence. Not because I was threatening him, because he knew it was true. I wasn't funding his lifestyle anymore, but I was funding his child's future. That changed the power dynamic permanently. I didn't think you'd actually do it, he said finally. Neither did I replied honestly. That's the part people don't talk about. Drawing a line like that isn't satisfying in the moment. It's terrifying, because you don't know what you'll lose. The next time I saw Noah was 2 weeks later. Megan texted first. Are you free Sunday? He keeps saying, Papa. I showed up with groceries and a small stuffed dinosaur. No grand gestures, no Lamborghini engines, just diapers, formula, and a man learning how to stop confusing rescue with love. Tyler was there when I arrived. He didn't look at me at first. He looked tired, not Instagram tired, real tired. He watched me hand Noah the toy. He watched Noah run toward me, and something in his expression shifted. Not jealousy, not yet. Something closer to realization. You really meant it, he said quietly. Yes. He nodded once. He didn't apologize. I didn't expect him to, but he didn't mention the Lamborghini again. Weeks passed, then months. He started paying child support on time, not perfectly, but consistently. He got a job that didn't involve the word brand. He still posted motivational quotes, but they were less about domination, more about discipline. We didn't become close overnight. There was distance. There still is, because trust doesn't grow back instantly after you've tried to trade it for a car. But something changed that day in the driveway. The leverage disappeared, and without leverage, manipulation starves. People ask me sometimes if I regret humiliating him, if I should have handled it privately. Here's the truth. He made it transactional first. He attached love to a purchase. All I did was detach it. The Lamborghini was never the point. It was bait. And he bit. What mattered wasn't the car. It was the redirect. I stopped investing in ego and started investing in legacy. Noah is 3 now. He doesn't know about the Lamborghini. He doesn't know about ultimatums. He just knows I show up. Tyler and I speak carefully. There are no more threats about access, no more prove you love him games. Because once someone calls your bluff and survives it, you don't get to play that card again. The last time we talked about that day, he said something that stuck with me. I thought you'd always fold. I looked at him for a long moment before answering. I did too. And that's the real ending. Not the driveway, not the rental, not the argument. The ending is this. He didn't get the keys. And for the first time in his life, he had to build something without being handed the engine. That's not punishment. That's adulthood. And that's the only inheritance that actually lasts. He asked for a Lamborghini. He got a trust fund instead. The car left. The lesson stayed. And for the first time in his life, he didn't get the keys.